All right, we're going to give a warm welcome now to our next guest, Sumir Meghani, CEO of Instawork. Sumir, how are you today?
Good morning, Jen, I'm fantastic, and it's great to hear from you.
You know, a lot going on in the world today, and I just wanted to get your top line thoughts on what you're hearing, what you're seeing on the ground right now. How are business leaders reacting? You may not have seen any change yet to what we're seeing regarding energy markets and the broader war that's expanding in the Middle East.
I think we're continuing to hear a lot about labor feeling squeezed, and I think even before some of the conflict in the Middle East, Janet, that February jobs report came out, and 92,000 jobs lost, and I think Wall Street was surprised, but a lot of the partners and pros on Instawork, kind of representing Main Street, were not surprised. And I think there's been a little bit of a hiring freeze the last couple months, I think both between some of the conflict abroad and concerns about tariffs, and people aren't quitting to go find a new job, and employers aren't firing, and so the hiring market is in a state of stasis. And I think we see that in a lot of consumer expectations. So I think the American worker right now needs love from somewhere, because I think they're really, between inflation, tariffs, and the jobs report, and potentially more inflation now because of some of the conflict in the Middle East that you referenced, they're in a tough spot.
Right, so let's talk about what you're seeing in your internal data regarding the labor market that you don't think is being reflected in the official government data.
Well, remember, Janet, on Instawork, this is primarily are looking for flexible labor that they can scale up quickly, labor that they can move around as they're expanding in different places. So it's slightly a different cut than the official government report, which tends to have a very calcified kind of view of the labor market. But one interesting data point our economic research team sent me last week is our wage index in February went from 50 to 56 year over year. And what we see on Instawork then, at least to kick off 2026, is a lot of wage competition growing for workers on Instawork. And what we think is happening is that because employers are firing less, employees are quitting less. I mentioned a few weeks ago that New York Fed survey of consumer expectations. People think the probability of finding a job, if you lose it, is less than 50%. It's dropping. And so people do not want to quit. They do not want to leave their job. So I think businesses are maybe using flexible labor in ways that they can plug gaps while they wait for the next card to be dealt. But that wage index was, I thought, pretty interesting. It was a big jump year over year.
So let's discuss where you think this is all headed next. We've got the impact of higher energy prices, the impact of AI, businesses, as you say, in this low hire, low fire environment. Where do you see the labor market evolving to this year?
One of the trends we continue to watch closely is where is economic activity related to supply chain going. I think we can talk about the tariff scramble. I think there's a scramble playing out in terms of where businesses are choosing to put labor and capital, and it's really logistics belt. We're seeing index growth in markets like Reno, Louisville, Kansas City, Raleigh, Durham continue to grow quickly in 2026. I don't think that's going to change as costs become a bigger input, a bigger factor into how supply chain businesses make decisions. I think that's for sure one trend that's not going to go away. We'll continue to see that in our data. One of the things we're starting to see now is commute times, how much our pros commute to have to go to a job. It was very high in January. It was 39. It dropped down to 22 miles, Janet, in February. So it's not crazy. It is coming down, but still year over year continues to be quite high.
Finally, if you're somebody who's seeking work in this environment, whether it's flexible work or full-time work, what's the best advice that you can give right now, Sumir?
The best advice, funny enough, has nothing to do with some of the topics we talked about. I think it's leaning hard into AI, Janet. One of the places where Instawork's seeing a lot of demand is we're doing a lot of work around what I call physical AI. If there's a self-driving car that's abandoned or not working or the door's open, you need a field team to go out and fix it. As robots get deployed in kitchens, stadiums, in warehouses, Instawork's working with a lot of robot companies that need a new category of worker, which we call internally robot wrangler. I was just in Southern California, Janet, spent time with one of our pros, Salvador, and he started on Instawork working in the events business, event operation, event management, and now he's a robot wrangler in Southern California. I know that there's a lot of skepticism and concern around AI and what it's going to do for jobs, but I'll say there's no putting the genie back in the bottle. Like, it's out. Yeah. And the best thing that every person can do is be AI enabled, be AI first when thinking about their role. And I think for the blue-collar pros on Instawork, physical AI and robotics is certainly the place that they should spend time. And we're building a lot of resources in the app to help them pick up those skills.
So where do we go if we want to see the latest and greatest at Instawork? Where can we get in touch with you, and where can we follow the recent developments?
Well, if you're a business looking to learn about labor or trying to get matched with high-quality, reliable labor, or if you're a pro anywhere in the world who wants to learn more about opportunities near you, find us on the App Store, Instawork, and then we're also on X, we're on LinkedIn. Just look for @Instawork.
Thanks again, Sumir.
Talk to you soon. Thank you again.